Salam and good afternoon. It's afternoon here in the Pakistani Himalayas from Ramala Hubb'Allah. That is me, and I will continue on my super lecture on future of countries and the times of climate shift. I've gone in great detail talking about what climate shift is, in my understanding and opinion, how it's impacting people, how it's moving resources, how it is impacting political stance and political work, and why is there a rise in nationalist politics and movement across the world as countries have understandably become very alerted about all sorts of incoming influences on each nation. There's a kind of compression that is taking place, nation, and therefore, nation. But okay, each nation has to understandably fortify itself. Hopefully, that'll happen without them tipping over into cruelty, not just war, which is in self defense, but gratuitous war, self serving war, or expansive war, or expansionism, or also isolation that may hurt them. These are some of the responses of not having what I called breathable boundaries. Breathable boundaries plus healthy interaction. Okay, I wrote this down. Breathable boundaries plus healthy interaction with the world. This is my super lecture 3 in my ecological series. Gosh, my spellings look horrible from behind the camera when I'm holding camera in one hand. Super lecture 3. Dun, dun. Okay. So, future of countries in the times of climate shift. There is on all nations, whether they are north, north or south, east or west, increasing pressure of all sorts. There are nations which have extracted a lot of resources from other nations, and they were kind of sort of sometimes giving the poor or underdeveloped or the extracted from nations some money in the forms of charity, aid, development projects. Once these developed nations, as in call them, developed and developing. Sometimes I use words like poor, rich, first world, second world. I'm very direct with these kind of things. I want to get the point across instead of arguing about semantics. And the semantics are really very important. I think semantics are more important when we need to understand such sublime concepts as breathable boundaries. That is of far more value to us right now because I'm looking at things that are sort of biological, like that are going to help our biological life, our sustainability, our structures, our psyches, our intentions, and our cultures and our thoughts, to the extent that those cultures and our thoughts are benevolent and then they should survive. I also think, quite rightly so, we are in a time of major revisionism. And so let me attend to that for a minute there. As we are seeing across the world, there's major revisionism taking place, aka sometimes called wokeness, and that used to be at its point of origin a good concept, which then degenerated into, you know, in fact, it was woke, socially conscious and aware, that became wokeness, which became a parody of itself. And in fact, I would argue it has become a danger, a lunatic danger. I am not going to mince my words. It's become a lunatic danger at this point, which is why the pendulum is swinging in the reverse. And so we have rightist control, controlling mindsets emerging again, which actually energetically offsets this complete sheer lunacy that we were descending into, where any and all things were just being okayed. And so you need basically pendulum does swing back and forth between left and right and control and less control and structured and unstructured. This is the This is innate biology. This is how life goes. And if we hold things too much in one place, then that is not really natural. So life just tends to go back and forth. If we are actually holding one part or one country of the world, in any of the states, there would be another country on the other side of the world that will assume the polar opposite positions because polarities tend to balance themselves out. So this would happen. So, for example, if you have very rigid structures in countries like China or Russia, and you would see a polar opposite of liberation in the West. Or if you have too much liberation in the West, that there would be countries that would be tightening up their culture on the other side of the world. So one sort of propels the other. This is the nature of currents in life. Okay, so there was a needed revisionism taking place where human beings were like, is what we're doing okay? If not, then let's wipe out certain concepts from our life. That alerted some people who are like, our culture and our religion is in danger. That maybe you need to go back to your what the origin of your culture and your nation and your religion is, and then sort out the good and right values, and see, are you actually even following them? List them out. So it's okay. Sometimes we're not aware of our own values, we are not implementing them. People who may or may not have our best interests at their heart could be attacking us because we're not following these values. So we have to actually, again, it's revisionism. We have to move back into taking stock, I would say. Stop yourself, take stock. Where are we right now? Where were we supposed to go? And are we there yet? Uh, and there's no yet, I suppose. There's this an ongoing living. So are we abiding by our principles? Because we have to keep on moving to the center, or as I called it on my previous slide, uh, fundamental agreed upon common good. Good. And I also said that common good caters to the individual good. In very controlling society, there's only one kind of common good that caters to one kind of individual good. Like you say, oh, I have a standard version or offering for individuals. But in more sensitive and flexible societies, there are various offerings for individuals at various ability and need points. And this is when you need more of a motherly outlook, not a paternal or fixed outlook. But this is where our right brained thinking, not the rightist thinking, but right brained, more fluid thinking comes into being. This is where more feminine aspects, more caring aspects come into being. So that's that. So you have to develop a new kind of governance which has a mix of control plus care. Okay. And this tends to be masculine in nature. This needs to be feminine. Tends to be feminine in nature. This tends to be fatherly. This tends to be motherly. A mother looks at four children and caters to their various needs, and father is like, okay, I am bringing home $4,000, for which 2,000 were for the kids, so 500 for each. Um, and that's not how the mother assigns. She's like, we have this kid who's kind of disabled. They need, I don't know, $1,000. So the rest we're gonna distribute accordingly in other kids. And that needs to happen. So then somebody would say, why should we take care of the weak kid? Well, one, because you're human. Secondly, if you are wanting to keep them alive, which I hope you are, then their health and benefit and restoring them to some kind of functionality works for the good of all. Because if you then you start looking at collective structures, you realize we are only as strong as the weakest link in the family or in any kind of organization as such. So if you don't build them up, eventually, somewhere, somehow, um, we are all going to fall down. So sometimes people sort of kick the children out, or organizations, if they don't have a good worker, they kick them out. But how many workers are we going to kick out at the totality of the system? Somewhere, somehow, somebody will have to look at the system and say, okay, we now have a workforce of 2 million people who are not qualified to operate in the current economy, and somewhere, somehow, somebody has to take care of them. So either the private sector will step up and say, okay, we're going to reskill them. And then all those people who are not skilled enough will say, well, maybe we don't even have the money to pay for that. Or the government, in my view, can obtain quite a lot of benefits for the totality of the whole nation by saying, okay, you know what, it's easier for us to take care of that kind of big collective problems, um, big data problems. We say, okay, we're going to take care of 2 million people. We will assign some funds to reskilling them. While it may look unfair to other people, the cost that they are going to pay for handling those people or allowing those people to just kind of keep on degenerating and become addicts or homeless and then make various parts of the towns and country inhabitable. Better than that, why don't we skill them out of, you know, the government treasury and bring them on par, because that is going to help the totality of nation. A lot of cultures are not able to see that big picture. I live in the Himalayas, and in some Himalayan villages, they have this kind of understanding. And they say, well, if we don't take care of our weak and poor people, first of all, that's not very pleasant. It is obviously, while it's not pleasant to say that it's a burden to them, it's a burden to the rest of the people. It can become an eyesore when some people become very degenerated. They start living on the road and they're filthy and all that. They can become vectors for diseases and all that. And this is pain all around. So why don't we just go and fix them if we can? And that just works for everybody. Restore them, and when we restore them, they can become part of the community and society, and they're going to start working again. And whatever work they do, or the joy they bring, or whatever way they can be functional, is going to cycle back into the society. So it's your choice. Do you want to have a functioning society, or do you not want to have this functioning society? Do you see? It's like a I have my kid's bicycle right here, hiding behind a curtain, right? So if the chain goes off and everything else is okay, if the cycle could think for itself, would it want to fix its own chain or not? It's up to the cycle. If it's not, I'm not going to take care of the chain. Why does the chain get off? If the chain is a loser, well, then you don't have a functioning cycle, right? Maybe you can cycle it a little bit for a while, or the seat, gets a little bit wonky, or the brakes are a little bit faily, or, the seat wobbles, or the kickstand wobbles a little bit. You are, at the end of the day, not going to have a good cycle. Not a functioning cycle, always in a state of decline. It'll be put aside by its owner. So think of the society as a cycle that has got consciousness. It's got to fix its own parts, right? We develop machines and we develop AI and systems that fix themselves. Like, okay, if something has broken down, we have a human body where T cells are like, okay, T cells can choose not to do it. It's like, oh, we're T cells, we're not going to do it. But they say no. The hand got attacked, or there's a virus that has entered the lungs or something, or whatever it is that T cells attack, and they said, oh, let's go, or let's swarm. So a part of our totality of our governance and our systems has to be these kind of T cells who are like, okay, where is the injury? We got to go and swarm and fix it, because that helps the entirety of the system. That is not an understanding that some nations are displaying to their own peril. Or one day they will have to. They keep on doing what is called ableism. It looks good. They're like, well, imagine if the lung in a body got weak and there were no T cells, and the liver and the heart were like, well, I'm good. I made it. I'm good. I did everything right. Uh, why did you have to go somewhere where you inhaled that bad smoke? Or, oh, okay, so what if you got a virus? Oh, you got virus accidentally. It was no fault of your own. But okay, so you know what? I made it through this or that disease, or I kept myself clean, or whatever it is. I'm happy. I'm healthy. You got to catch up as well. Now, maybe the lung can say, okay, I'll catch up, but you'll be wasting a lot of time. A better way is for the system to be quickly corrected. Imagine if the lung functions well as soon as it can, having rested enough, having healed itself enough. I'm not saying push it towards it. That is another problem in our medical systems. They're like, you have to be immediately good. No, that thing got damaged, that thing got hurt. It's got to take its time, and that is going to help every other part and the whole body in the long term. So we don't do ableism. We do care, we do adjustment. But if something is very prone to keeping on breaking down, then we have to go to plan B and it's like, what is happening here? Why is this thing like falling apart? In the body, actually, sometimes one part is affected by another part. So you have to look at all the parts, and then you have to make sure the body is in a good, healthy environment in order for it not to become sick. And then ultimately you zoom out and you look at the will of the person. So that's a debate that we're really getting into, but I'm talking about how systems work or how they should work. So that's that. That is, once again, a very summarized, pithy, succinct insight into really very complex matters that are leading to a lot of debate, leading to a lot of fights, ongoing fights. I'm still sure people are going to say, nah, why should we fix a broken part? Why don't they do what we do? Like, why should we pay off their debts? Why don't they pay their debts? Well, they're going to take a long time to pay their debts. As long as they don't, they are just going to sit around, be a burden on everybody. So it's in your favor to fix them up, but also build accountability and look at the process as to why people end up in that situation and fix that. right? But it's your choice. Do you want to carry on having a burden, or do you not? Like, do you want to correct the totality of society or not? I think the problem is that a lot of cultures do not see the totality of society as one. They're like, if you're bad, or if you're sick, you're not a part of us. You're a liability. Or if you're too good, you're not a part of us. You're too good. We're going to attack you. We're going to resent you. We're going to see you as one of us. We're not going to encourage you to be a part of us. And if we keep you as a part of us, you would be encouraged to maybe invest in us or care for us. No. If you become too good, you become too rich, we're going to eat you up. We're going to attack you. We're going to badmouth you. We're going to envy you. We're going to start crying about why you've become too good. And both these um, attitudes are really bad for the society. So we have ableism by the able, and we have envy by the less abled. Envy and sabotage. Envy, sabotage, resentment, or like, oh, why did you become so rich? Why are you getting things? Oh, you're smarter than me, blah, 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 blah. So the society has to balance itself from both sides at all times, like a living system. All the time, we need to move to the center. And we need to start seeing societies as some kind of a finite closed loop system. Okay, we need to see them as family at one point. You know what happens is, like, for example, I was going to give you an example of a restaurant. If the restaurant is not running well, if the chef is cooking at the right speed, but the waiters are not serving at the right speed, so what are we going to do? Are we going to fix the system? You know what a lot of people would do? They would take the easy way out. They would just fire the person who's not operating well. But how you can fire from a subset of the system? You cannot fire from the totality of the system. At the end of the day, you're going to like, these people, they just don't work. Well, that's not the solution, right? That is identification of a problem. You can scream at them all the time. You just cannot motivate human beings to diagnosing problems with them. There will need to be a time when you were like, okay, what's the solution? Okay, if the waiters are not working at the right speed, do they have an ability problem? Do they have an understanding problem? Do they need to be skilled up? Somewhere in there would be an issue of accountability, or just the waiters will, they don't want to be waiters. There are people who just don't want to be waiters, and they could actually perform well in another sector. So we have the issue of matching people to the right job, the right skill, the right whatever they want to do. So there's a lot that goes into creating a society. Right now, one of the chief countries in the world that everybody has their eyes on, the USA, is moving towards the right. I favor it because I think there's some kind of strict control on the absolute haywire energy was needed. But at the same time, we also need that energy, and then we need to start putting that energy and start arranging that energy in the right place, start moving it around or allowed to move around while cutting off the absolute garbage that needs to be cut. Like, there's some things that don't need to be accepted at all. But whatever we are left with then uh, is valuable. Like, for example, we need to skill people, we need to sometimes forgive people, we need to help people, we need to uplift people, we need to understand their psyches, we need to understand what they want to do with their lives. And then allow them to do it. And from people's dreams and their inclinations will come the future, like a newer society. We cannot stop a future from emerging. Now, if we see or feel that the future is somehow adverse, either that can be our perception, or we have let certain energies and intentions run amok. And so we need to stem them where they are. For example, an excessive emphasis on technology at the cost of biology has been a very bad priority of humanity. So we say, okay, well, we focus a lot on technology. How about we start focusing on other things like, I don't know, mental health and so on? These are valid concerns. The risk with returning to a rightist, patriarchal, masculine, fatherly, controlling mindset without taking account of the peculiarities of human psyche is that we are going to try to homogenize the society, make it very monotonous, and try to expect productivity, which is what the American discourse is saying. I don't want to pinpoint on America. This isn't about politics. I just want to pick it up as a case study. There are definitely other nations which do something similar. There are households that do similar things. There are households across the world, even in Asia, where the father is like, I paid money for your college, and I just wanted you to do the best. There's a lot of that in China, for example. So I don't want to pick on America. It's just that it's just sort of sprung to my attention in a major way, partly because my family is American, and because I have. Growing up, many of us were like obsessed with these Western nations, and for the longest time, I haven't been. And so my focus has recently turned back to these nations. And so I'm just sort of uh, I have a lot of energy to dedicate to that because I didn't swing on that side of the pendulum for the longest time. So I've been working with native cultures, so-called native cultures, underdeveloped nations, and suddenly because my attention has developed back to developed nations, and there are certainly powerful nations that get a lot of attention on the on social media, for example, which could be reasonably tilted. So that's why these issues are springing up to me, and maybe for good reasons, because what happens in America doesn't stay in America. That is going to affect the rest of the world. The rest of the world has actually done quite a lot of preparation. I don't know if that's going to be enough. And I don't know if the goods are going to reach me. I think there are a lot of people who have sort of uplifted themselves out of poverty, out of really poor situations. But then there are people like me, the urban people of the world, urban middle class, which is going to be left in the middle because we are not natives as such, and we are not very developed. So we'll have to figure out a way of life where we can find some leg room for ourselves to operate, because we don't want to operate in the super developed military industrial paradigm any longer, but we also don't have access to natural resources that some of these developing nation people have. They actually have an advantage. So I think there will need to be some negotiation taking place here where people like myself will have to maybe pay to sort of, I don't know, obtain land or something and sort of gain rights to um, become more land oriented, which we haven't been for the longest time. So that was a danger also that I was looking at and quietly whispering to people around me that those of us who actually may not have been very developed, but we were taught in the paradigm and idiom of developed nations, will actually be stuck in the middle, say, oops, where do we go now? Because this world is not just closing its doors, it's also changing itself. And this world is like, nah, don't look at us and our resources. And their resources are being taken from them, but not by very benevolent forces either. So, yeah, that's me, spilling the tea, the socio-economic political tea as to what's been happening and why are we looking at not just potentials and possibilities and a lot of good possibilities, but also at lots of conflicts that are about to erupt, and we're going to be squeezed in some ways. So there's that. I will conclude this now and jump on to the next part, which will be about, hopefully, about control mindset and about future of countries and how they're going to shift or how they could possibly shift, right? So yes, there was revisionism that was needed, and yeah, I'll try to talk text about if I don't wander off into some other thematic, as I tend to. I'll try to talk about control mindsets and how those have led to, in my view, the rise of modern nation states, and how a biological mindset, an eco-biological, eco-spiritual mindset could render very different kind of countries. So we'll talk about that next, inshallah, which means God willing, if you don't know what inshallah means. Um, Thank you. This is Ramala Hubb'Allah. Go to my website, sobala.com and thesalammatrix.org. And not all the content is updated there, but you will soon start seeing more content appear there and become streamlined. Thank you.